In this new spiritual season, we'll see a transformation of the family of God.
In a culture of isolation and loneliness, the cry of every heart is for community and belonging.
Len Zoeteman joins us today to talk about the new wineskin that is emerging.
Stay tuned. This is LifeLine Today.
Welcome to LifeLine Today. I am so glad you're a part of the program because
Yes.
we're going to have an awesome time. Len Zoeteman is here. We had him on a previous program and our phones got very, very busy. I'm going to encourage you to phone early if you want prayer and ministry to get in.
Yeah.
We do have lots of volunteers, but oh my goodness, sometimes those phones get very busy and you may get voicemail. And remember, if you do get voicemail, we'll call you back.
Yeah.
Thank you for being a part of the program as
Yes.
well. Hey, welcome back to the program.
Welcome
Welcome back.
Len.
Great to be with you.
Yeah, we touched on some things in a previous program that really are core. Oh my goodness,
They
and
are.
that's an understatement.
Yep.
Core to the need in our culture, and not just every culture.
Every culture.
In fact, some of the cultures that we experience in China, for example, the breakdown of the family
Wow.
was so severe through communism, through the purges that took place, and the Chinese. Even the newer generation don't know what a family is, a
No.
normal family.
But they're hungering
They
for
are.
it,
There's a
and
hunger.
it's happening.
Really?
And so it's so exciting to hear and to see. And Len, today we want to talk
Yes.
about the transformation of the family of God, because this is definitely a new thing that's happening in this new season. There's something happening in the family of God. Just talk to us about that.
You know, if you look historically, the four spiritual laws dealt a whole lot with regard to our separation and in the state of where we're at. And churches built so much of their whole culture around black and white teaching that sometimes had a mixture of religion in which people felt very judged.
Wow.
You see, because the nature of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil is that it's a tree of right and wrong. It's a tree of good and bad.
Yeah.
It's a tree that gives a propensity for a spirit of religion, and it is a tree that at its essence is judgment. The purpose of judgment is separation. Separation from God, from ourselves, and from each other. And so without knowing it, you can end up where people who have profound need come to Jesus. They come into a hunger for God, a cry for God, only to find out that there are all kinds of preconditions still to be accepted by God and in a community of believers. And the fallout is vast. And so one of the things that the Father is doing is, his nature is love, but there's a wineskin for the love of God. And that is a family of God.
Right.
You see.
Yes.
It's huge.
Wow. So just talk to us about what's happening for this wineskin to be developed. There must be a cry in the hearts of the people once again.
Yep.
We live in a society where you would never think people would be lonely with all the media connections, the social media and everything, but there's like such loneliness there. Just talk to us about that.
Well, we're moving into a sociological crisis.
Absolutely.
We are.
I mean, and it's a precipitous crisis. It's happening so fast.
Yeah.
But in the advent of the utilization of the mobile technology, we have moved now into a place in social media where people have this pseudo community,
Right.
only to find out that it's not real community.
No.
In fact, it's almost produces a dysfunctional review of who I am.
Yeah.
And so rather than creating a healthy view of identity and well-being and feeling loved, it oftentimes does the opposite,
It
or it's
does.
very shallow.
Len, the first smartphone came out in January of 2007.
Yeah.
An iPhone, the first iPhone.
Yes,
And
it was.
And they have said that, and I've been hearing this like in many secular sources, spiritual sources, but that this is causing more change, cultural change, than anything else in our life.
100%.
But here's the thing: we're seeing inability to communicate, interact like humans have interacted for thousands of years. We are having young
right.
people sitting next to each other, texting each other.
It's
They're
true.
more comfortable to communicate this way than to actually talk
It's
to
true.
that person.
And then we don't have to look at each other
That's
or
right.
really
Or feel, or touch.
really
That's right.
say what's on our hearts.
So-
you can lie, you can be phony,
Yes, you can.
you know.
All of the above.
The other thing we've noticed, and we've noticed this in many worship services, is that we have a generation that can't have more than like 2 or 3 minute attention span.
That's true.
And so how do you have any fellowship, relationship, love,
You don't.
interaction, wineskin of family, when you can't, when these things are already hindrances?
Absolutely.
Wow.
It's a huge crisis. And you see, one of the things that is now at the very core of the crisis, I don't want to say the crisis, but the crisis that we find ourselves in is also part of the transition of what the Father is doing in the church.
Wow.
Because now the church is being transformed to reflect the love of the Father. Because it's the love of the Father that heals people. You see, truth doesn't always heal a broken heart.
Right.
But it's the love of the Father that heals the broken heart. But then it's the people that have been loved by the Father that heal the broken heart. And for many of your viewers, I might as well just jump ahead into it. Because one of the things I began to see is the absolute necessity of spiritual fathers and mothers.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Now, and for instance, you know, I've worked on lots of, well, not lots, but several Billy Graham crusades. Many of the statistics will tell you that crusade evangelism, as powerful as it is, doesn't always net out with people becoming rooted in a local church. One of the reasons for that is because the precursor of relationship wasn't there.
Yeah.
Or the whole area of street evangelism, where you go out and look for people and to pray for them.
Yeah.
Doesn't always net out with people coming and rooting in the church, because again, relationship is the key. So sometimes a local church can look like an orphanage.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so we have a pseudo-father that it's at the front and says, well, I'm the father of the church and I'll take care of you, and we teach people in Mass and things like this. But the cry of people for in-depth heart relationship, you see, the word koinonia, where it says, and they gathered together in the apostles' doctrine, breaking of bread, fellowship and prayer, that word is the word koinonia. And we've kind of forgotten a lot about that.
Right.
Yeah.
But that was a vital part. So much so that we actually think that healing is something that comes directly through Jesus. But in the context of healing, much of that was meant to come through the body. In fact, joy which really is, I am so happy to be in your presence, that it ignites a joy.
Yes.
And then we begin to realize that neural pathway opens up into our experience with the Father, where all of a sudden, in the fullness, in the presence of God is fullness of joy, that we awaken with this essence of joy. And joy not only brings strength, but it brings healing into our lives. So it was, for instance, for me, it was 2 months ago, as of the day of this taping, that I was in the ICU in a hospital, really at the point of almost dying because of a burst appendix. And so 2 weeks later, I went to a meeting of people, and my voice was still like 40% of what it normally is. I was so weak. But I was in the presence of these people that I loved. And an hour and a half later, my voice went from that weakened state to 90% of normal, and it had never been like that.
So what you're saying is there's healing in that community of family. Wow.
Confess your needs.
Yeah.
Confess your life.
Faults.
Confess your faults to one another so that you can be healed. There's healing in each other. And you see, the power of it, now you want to move into the power levels, is when we begin to realize that it's in our vulnerability one to another. That you see, religion says you have to be perfect. But God says you just have to be real. In fact, the love of God manifests in the depth of our brokenness, in the depth of our pain, in the depth of our sorrows. And all of a sudden, what we begin to realize that in the transparency of who we really are, when we open up in this, we move into a culture of mercy. And you see, the mercy of God transforms our lives and makes us whole.
Wow.
So you see, it's in some places people sort of ignore the brokenness and all the messed up stuff that derives from it. God doesn't do that.
Yeah.
God heals us. He makes us well. But he makes us well with each other.
Yeah.
Yes, right.
You see, and that's the cry of people. They're saying, is there a safe place right now that I
Yes.
can go?
We've heard that said to us several times
They
in
want
the
it.
last little while. Is there a safe place?
Well,
Wow.
yes. Well, I believe in the heart of God there is. And do you know what I saw? And this is great for your viewers. They'll love this thought. But you know, one of the greatest heart cries, and you think it's in the last verse in the book of Malachi, it says that God would restore the heart of the fathers and the mothers to the sons and daughters, right? And the reciprocal.
It's true.
Yeah.
That if it didn't happen, there would be a curse.
That's
Curse,
right.
yep.
You want to know something? If a natural child needs a family to grow up in, wouldn't that be true in the spiritual sense?
You would think
Wouldn't
so.
they need spiritual fathers or mothers?
Yeah.
And so you think of people who have grown in God now, that now carry testimony, they carry life, they carry so many things. I began to link people who were new in their faith to people that were mature in heart. And I began to watch them grow because they were anchored.
Wow.
They were anchored with spiritual fathers and mothers. We need you more than ever.
Yeah. Spiritual mothers and spiritual
The
fathers.
thing is, the
and-
sons or daughters need to have a revelation too that they need the fathers and the mothers.
Yes.
Yeah.
And because if you never have known that, that revelation has to be deposited in
does.
their hearts because they've never lived a life where they know this kind
That's
of
true.
thing. And I've had people say that, well, a father, a loving father, no, I don't even know what you're
They
talking
don't even
about.
know. Lots of them don't know.
Yeah.
But their hearts cry out for it.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
But even when they don't know, they're crying out for it.
That's right.
They think it's something else. And I think we said this on a previous program that the temptation is to turn to a lot of other things.
Of course.
Well, even this can sometimes, for a moment or for a time, fill the gap. Oh, I've got 4,500 friends, you know.
Yeah, I know.
And but
You might actually know 10 of them.
yeah,
You know what the real issue is? It's in the crisis of our lives.
Yeah.
It's in the crisis of our lives that many
That's-
times people cannot make it through a crisis time in themselves.
Right.
Right? And that's when
That's
we
when-
need each other.
Yeah.
And that's when we need family.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's when we need people who are going to believe in us. Because you know what? I could walk up here, and you've heard me say this before, if I came up on the set today and I had this big bandage on my foot, and you'd say, Len, what happened? I stepped on a nail. And you said, oh no, you're bleeding so serious. And I said, oh yeah, I'm bleeding. But you know what's really happened to me that's so terrible? Oh, what's that, Len? I became a nail. I became a nail. And you say, what? You became a nail because you stepped on a nail? Now, you would think, Len, you need prayer for more than your foot,
yeah.
right? But the truth is, here's what happens is, I failed, and now I became a failure.
Yeah.
Wow.
You took the identity.
Yeah.
Shame makes our ever failing an identity. And you see, it takes the love of God to heal the shame in our heart. It takes the blessing of God. And you know what? When people who are loved begin to allow the Father to love through them, it breaks the power of shame off of people. And without it, people can be locked into a failing for a lifetime.
Wow. Now, Len, this kind of thing
Wow.
happens in a normal, healthy family. But what you're saying is that the church is a family, and it's not happening.
Well, I'm not saying it isn't, but I'm saying it's desperately needed.
It's desperately needed, and we believe that there's
Needs
a
to
new
move that
wineskin that the
direction.
church is going to be transformed into
Yes.
more of a family. So I'm just saying, you know, what does a church have to do to adapt to this cry of the heart for family and community?
I think there's several things.
I'm talking about, say like a traditional church. You know, we don't want to miss this. That's what I'm saying.
You know, I think that one of the things is the core of our relationship. What our experience is rooted in. You see, loved people love.
Yes, that's right.
And so it begins with the experiencing of the love of the Father in our lives as people. Without that, then we live in a vacuum. And in that vacuum, we can be very religious. And the world doesn't want to see
Explain
religion
that.
anymore.
Yeah.
Well,
What do you mean by-
I think religion creates facades.
Yeah.
I think religion creates, you know what, and it doesn't mean that religion, that in ourselves, we're doing the best we can. You know what I mean? We're doing the best we can, but we live in this, under this umbrella of judgment.
To me, religion means rules.
It can be, yes.
It's more a head thing and
head.
rules, and it's not the heart.
Well, you can say it this way, that in some, like this is pushing the umbrella way, or the pendulum way to the end, but you could say somebody comes in to the family of God, they're a brand new creation, they're young, and then the criteria is, well, if you believe right, you'll behave right, and then you get to belong.
Yeah.
Well, what happens if the cry of the person is, I want to belong?
Yeah.
I don't believe right. I don't behave right.
Yeah.
You see, Jesus broke all those rules.
Yeah.
He said, you belong first.
Yeah, right.
So you see, all of a sudden, there becomes this acceptance of people for who they are and where they're at.
Yeah.
But then you walk them through, you see. You walk them through and you bring them in.
He didn't leave them that way.
He didn't leave them that way.
He would say to them often when he healed, go and sin no more.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, they were never left that way because it's the nature and the desire. You see, when our hearts have been experienced the love of God, it transforms our hearts. So we don't stay the same person that we once were. But there's a place where we're together. I'll go back to the issue of fathers and mothers.
Yeah.
Because they then, I believe, begin to build this whole enclave of people around their lives that now begin to become safe, and where you build community. And you know what? Where you begin to do life together. I think there are a lot of people that I watch, at least from a city standpoint, they like going to a big church. You know why? Because they can go on a Sunday morning, they can sit in the shadows, they can sit in that time, they can watch the worship go on with their hands in their pocket, and then they can leave. And they call that church. But that's not church.
No.
Right.
Church is community. It's
Church.
koinonia.
It's koinonia.
I hate to say this in a sense because one of the things that forces every believer and every church to become what the New Testament described the church to be. You just quoted Acts 2:42. Two of the four things were fellowship oriented, breaking of bread and fellowship, koinonia. And the thing is that historically, persecution
there was persecution.
Drives the church.
It did.
So there's a phenomena going on in Iran where primarily a church led by women, are discipling one-on-one.
They are.
And there's a massive underground growth of the church.
There is.
And they meet for fellowship. There's no organized institution.
None.
And that's not a repudiation of that either. Because
not at all.
It's out of necessity.
It's out of necessity.
They would love to gather corporately and worship. But they do have the koinonia.
They do.
They have the koinonia and they have the fellowship and they are desperate for it and there's no option open to them.
None.
I hope this isn't the case for North America. Although we are seeing actually an environment that is moving more towards persecution.
Some prophetic people believe that as the coming of the Lord comes, that we will see a full circle, whereas it was in the day of the book of Acts where there was great persecution. That we will see a full circle come back and you'll see the clash of the two kingdoms, very strong. And in that clash of two kingdoms, you'll see persecution. And the truth is that in Canada, there is persecution today. It's very real.
Yeah, that's true.
And so for us to think that it doesn't exist is an illusion because it's here.
And we say that because you can not say anything about any particular group or religion even, but Christians. If media of any kind begins bashing Christians, there's no outcry. And this is why we can say, well, the culture is shifting towards that.
It is.
We're still relatively free of it, but still it's moving in that direction.
Oh yeah, there's many changes that are culturally happening right now, and you know, I'm not sure whether the environment is going to change how we do things or whether just in response to the working of God, whether this happens. I don't know how it's all going to shape. Maybe it'll probably be both. But I will tell you that the demand pull of people is that we are living in a culture where there is ripe fruit all around us. The key is to say, well, why is this ripe fruit not coming in to the kingdom of God? And why are we not seeing it connect into churches? there is not a harmonic interface yet.
Not yet.
Yeah.
Not yet.
No.
But I believe that there is a critical mass that we're moving toward. And you know what? What I suspect will happen is you'll see it begin to break out in places. And
you know, one of the thoughts that came to me as we're having this conversation is that some of what, or much of what we're talking about, happens when there's a baptism of the love of God into our lives.
Absolutely, there it is.
And that's the impetus. If we try, Joan says, what can we do? Well, when we try to do it in our natural strengths, it seems to always fall short.
That's
but
true.
oh my goodness, we remember the time when both Joan and myself came to the Lord. Now, I grew up in church, but when I came to know the fullness of the Holy Spirit, was in an environment, and you'd walk into this little church where the building was pathetic. It was the most pathetic looking place. You would never go there for any other reason. But it was saturated with this presence of the love of God.
Yes.
You could not walk in the door, and you wanted to stay there and you'd stay there all night. Oh my goodness. Well, we're going to come back. We're going to come back and talk about this.
It was.
All right. This is awesome. We're going to see a tremendous move of God. We'll be back right after this.
Canada needs a fresh move of God, and you can help by partnering financially with LifeLine today with Dick and Joan and the breakthrough anointing that's on this ministry. All monthly donors join our unique group of faithful partners, and in appreciation, Dick and Joan will send you a special DVD. In it, Dick and Joan share their hearts and vision for Canada and take time to pray powerfully over you. In addition, we will send you this year's special partner fridge magnet, a reminder that you stand together with Dick and Joan for Canada. Partner at $50 a month and also receive this leather-bound journal entitled Sacred Time, Sacred Place. This journal will bring greater intimacy to your daily time with the Lord. Faith-filled partners giving $100 a month will also receive this elegant journal Bible personally signed with a note of encouragement from Joan. Your tax-deductible donation will empower this ministry to release the prophetic voice of God across our nation. Call today and say yes to becoming a partner with Dick and Joan. Phone 403-942-0123 or email info@dickandjoan.com today.
We've been receiving so many requests from you across the nation recently concerning children, grandchildren, who are hurting because parents have been separated, families have been torn apart. But we know what it says in Malachi 4, verses 5 to 6, that the spirit of Elijah is coming before the day of the Lord, and he will turn the hearts of the fathers to the children and the hearts of the children to the fathers. Listen, you take hold of this word today for your family to be healed, to be reconciled. Surely now is the time for this promise to be fulfilled. Call us right now, share your need. You can email us at prayercenter@dickandjoan.com. We want to pray for you.
Okay.
We're here with Len Zoeteman, and you know what? As we're talking about these things, I'm getting really looking forward. I'm stirred up. I want to see the baptism of the love of God and the family atmosphere come to the body of Christ. Joan, you and I experienced this in our lives in the earliest days and now I don't want to even date ourselves here, right, exactly, but it was around the time we were married. We were in a revival. It was a charismatic revival.
It was? Oh, it's
and
huge.
that was a characteristic. We had none of the creature comforts that the church knows today, including stuff like this, but the place was just saturated with an atmosphere.
With an atmosphere of the love of God. You
know, you just said something to us offset. It was that the Moravians in 25 years did more to change the world because they lived in community.
They did. They had holy community, and God was present. It was said that when that presence came, it was recorded that God took all the divisions away from them, and they began to greatly honor and to esteem one another. It was like God was in their midst. The presence of God's love manifested in their midst, and they responded with 724 prayer. And out of that, a heart change. You see, the Moravians were consistent with the early church and even with Jonathan and Catherine Booth. And that was, out of that heart, it was others first. The love of God. You think about it as a mother. your children become first. Your
Yeah.
family comes
Exactly.
first, because that's the nature of the
Yeah.
love of God. This is all part of the shift that we're about to see.
And Len, just let me speak into that as a mother
Yeah.
and as a spiritual mother, because I know that
Oh,
there
yeah.
are many mothers watching me. Maybe you're a grandma, maybe you're a mother,
Yeah.
maybe you have been a spiritual mother, but you felt like, you know, what is there for me now in this season? You are so needed.
Totally.
And so I'm going to pray for you. God, I pray for
Yes.
all of these mothers, these grandmas,
Yes.
these spiritual moms that are
Lord, let
watching
it
right
be.
now, who feel like that there is no need, there's no call for them anymore. Do you know what? Young people are crying out for spiritual moms
They
and
are.
dads. So I pray, Father, that you would just bring young people into the hearts and lives of these spiritual moms and the spiritual dads. And Father, I thank you
Amen.
that you
Yes.
bring meaning back into the lives of many of them who
Amen.
have just sat on the sidelines
That's
and
right.
said, I'm finished. You're not finished. God needs you.
That's true.
God needs you for this new wineskin.
Amen.
In Jesus' name, I just declare
Yeah,
it.
in Jesus'
in
name.
Jesus' name.
Joan,
Yeah.
I just feel so many are, you know, in places where they feel so disconnected.
Yeah,
Maybe
right.
they're
Totally.
not as mobile as they used to be, whatever the situation, but they're not as connected. Many that are not connected to a local church family for one reason or another. Sometimes it's just circumstantial.
Yeah.
But I just sense that God is reaching out His love to those people right
Yeah.
now. You may feel alone, but right now you're connecting with us. Isn't that an amazing thing? Technology does allow us to do a few things that we've never been able to do before. And I
Yeah.
pray for you today
Yeah.
to feel the love of God that we are sensing right here on this set, and that we feel towards you. Say, you really do that? I do. Actually,
Yes,
in
you
my
do.
spirit,
Yeah.
I feel it towards you. And that's probably the love of God the Father
Yeah.
reaching out to you. And just lay a hand on yourself right now and just say, I receive that love,
Amen.
and let it be a healing.
Yeah.
And let it heal. Someone is actually experiencing a healing in your stomach. You've had very
Amen.
large number of stomach issues
Wow.
the past months, and God is touching you right now. And you've been crying out and saying, God, I want to be whole for Christmas
Yeah.
with the family and the food and all the fellowship. I want to be healthy. I hear the Holy Spirit touching you
Yes.
and healing your body. Call us, will you? Just
Yeah.
call us and let us know. Yes, and we do appreciate you as well. As many of you have partnered with us. We thank you for that. We do need partners because we're expanding what we're doing here. Thank you, Len, Prophet Z. We
Yeah.
always love to call you this.
Great love.
But you know, you really are. Malachi 4.
Yeah.
The Spirit of Elijah is turning the hearts of the children to the fathers, fathers to the
Absolutely.
children.
Yeah.
It's what God will do at the end
It's
of
the
the
day
age.
we're in.
It's the day we're in.
Yeah.
We desperately need each other.
Yeah,
And you know,
exactly.
the Father, He's not prejudicial and He's not judgmental.
No.
And I believe that there are people who've been hurt in churches.
Yeah.
And you know what I say to you? It's a new day.
It's
a
a
new
new day.
It's a new day
That's
for
right.
You
you.
receive that word.
And so step into it.
It's a new day, folks. It's a new day for you.
Yes,
Yeah,
amen.
well, no, it don't matter what the past is. It's a new day for you. Thank you for being part of the broadcast. God bless you.
God bless
we
you.
love you. See you
Love
next
you.
time.
See you
Bye-bye.
again. Bye-bye.
This program is supported by viewers like you, and we thank you for partnering with us. We want to hear from you. Send us your prayer requests, praise reports, and comments about the program. To watch past episodes, learn about the ministry, or contact us, visit our website at dickandjoan.com. You can also find us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. To find out how you can have Dick and Joan at your church, event, or conference, call LifeLine today at 587-425-5730 or email info@dickandjoan.com.